This is ridiculous. Everyone gets it. Remember, the Department of Justice wouldn't bring the case. The former District Attorney Cy Vance wouldn't bring the case. And even Alvin Bragg himself wouldn't bring the case until two of his guys resign, pitch a fit, get the left all fired up, and maybe most importantly, until Donald Trump announces he was running for president again and is leading in all the polls. So suddenly Alvin Bragg has a change of heart and decides to bring the case.
Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan slamming the indictment of former President Trump. The New York Post cover today saying, trumped up. Is that it? Bragg's historic case versus Don falls flat. Former Assistant U.S. Attorney and Fox News contributor Andy McCarthy joins us now. Andy, thanks for being with us. I have listened to a lot of what you've had to say about this. I've read a lot. You don't have a very high view of this indictment. In fact, you think it ought to be dismissed. But do you have a judge in Manhattan who will dismiss this, Andy? How is this going to play out given the indictment that came down?
Yeah, well, Brian, I don't think we should prejudge the judge. I know former President Trump has had a lot to say about him, but his counsel, his lawyers have also said, they think the judge is fine, at least so far. So I think we should see how he performs before we go too crazy. But I do think if I were Trump's lawyers, that now it wasn't fair to expect them to do this yesterday because they just got handed this indictment at 2:30 yesterday afternoon, right? But I think now that they've had a chance to digest it, I'd be under the judge's toes now and saying, number one, the indictment doesn't state a crime, so it fails just as an indictment. This isn't like an ideological thing. The indictment has to put the defendant on notice of what the crime is. This indictment fails to do that. And secondly, because this state prosecution is intruding into a very important federal election, I would be arguing that Bragg should not be allowed to go forward unless he can show that he's got a serious crime that's backed by convincing evidence. We ought to minimally expect that before we allow a sort of a kangaroo state proceeding to interfere with a federal election.
We've heard a lot yesterday of the procedural removal from state to maybe a federal court could be maybe one avenue. Yeah. I'm curious sort of how you think about sort of Bragg's term in office. He's downgraded last year, I believe it was 52% of felony cases to misdemeanors. And on day one, saying that he will no longer seek prison sentences in many crimes and would downgrade felony charges for armed robberies and drug dealing. How do you sort of legality wise, but also on the optics of it, then sort of bump this up from misdemeanor to felony when you've downgraded 52% of felonies and won't prosecute many of the violent crimes?
Yeah, Taylor, I think if I tried to rationalize that legally, I wouldn't be able to do it. So what I try to say is, like, down here on planet Earth, we shouldn't be regarding Alvin Bragg as a law enforcement official. We should be regarding him as what he is, which is an elected progressive Democrat who campaigned on two things: basically not enforcing the law against, the various quote unquote reform elements that are beloved of progressive Democrats, and number two, using the power of his office to go after one guy, Donald Trump, who is the only person certainly in New York, who would ever have been prosecuted for this felony. As you point out, every other case involving real serious criminals who are preying on New Yorkers, he's taking felonies, and if he prosecutes them at all, he knocks them down to misdemeanors. Here he takes something that nobody would prosecute even as a misdemeanor, and he inflates it into a felony. The only way you can rationalize it is to say he's pursuing a partisan agenda and putting his power in the service of the Democratic Party agenda.
Andy, to further that point, Alvin Bragg's press conference yesterday I found particularly curious. And at one point he said 34 false statements made to cover up other crimes, the other crimes that you mentioned he doesn't mention, right? And then he goes on to say, or he went on to say, these are felony crimes in New York State. No matter who you are, we cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct, which I started laughing the way you are, literally laughing out loud because of the point that Taylor just made with respect to how he has handled things here in New York. But switching gears for a moment, you've got Bragg on one side, and you know what you're dealing with there. You seem to be very optimistic, thinking that we should give the judge, a fair chance, that he's not biased. Let's see what he does with respect to venue. Let's see if he dismisses the case, as you suggest, could be a possibility. If he doesn't, and for some reason Trump is convicted, it seems to me that there is no fairness in this justice system, and that the president would have to be vindicated on appeal, which is really sort of painful when you think about the process that he's going through at a presidential election time as well, the financial burden it's going to take on him. I've even brought up the fact that it could take a toll on his health. I mean, this is not a joke when it comes to the justice system that we're dealing with.
No, it's certainly not. It's disgraceful in every way, politically, the way it interferes with our process. And look, as someone who wielded this enormous power for a long time, I don't have a problem with the idea that somebody who's running for president is not above the law. I think we should all be able to agree that if there's a serious crime that's backed by serious evidence and anybody else would be prosecuted for it, that a candidate for office ought to be prosecuted for it. But here, that fails that test in every fundamental way. There doesn't look like there's a serious case here. It clearly is being brought on account of politics. And to the extent, Jackie, that this state prosecutor is going to try to use this as a vehicle to enforce federal campaign law, I do think Trump's lawyers, if they don't get satisfaction quickly out of the court, would then have a basis to go into federal court and protest at least that.
Got it.
Andy McCarthy, we appreciate that insight. It looks to me like a vehicle for political advancement more than anything else. We've got to leave it there. Thanks for being with us, sir.